Hello and welcome to the All Variety Sports Show. I'm Andrew.
And I'm Sean.
So today is a very somber day. The first thing we have to talk about is unfortunately the Lakers losing the series to the Timberwolves. So there was a lot of memes going around, Lakers in 5. Well, this series did only go 5 games, but unfortunately it was not the way we would have liked.
Yeah, it was. There's just so many different things to unravel with this series and this Lakers roster in general. Um, I think we can start with JJ Redick choosing not to play Jackson Hayes, one of his only centers, one of his only rim protectors. Um, and they made Rudy Gobert look like prime Shaq
That
in
was
in real
absolutely
time.
ridiculous.
I think he
Seeing
had
so he went for 27
27
and
and
24.
24 to
It
Rudy
was
Gobert.
absolutely ridiculous seeing Rui and Dorian Finley-Smith trying to rebound against him. There was at one point where the announcers were calling out saying that, "Oh, Rudy has an offensive rebounding opportunity here if they miss,"
I
because
saw that.
Gabe Vincent was trying to box him out. It
Just
was
absolutely ridiculous.
yeah, it was terrible. I mean, at some point you just have to say, all right, Finney Smith was not doing great. He only had he had less than 10 points. He's playing his good defense. But what do you do when Rudy Gobert is just dominating you like that? That is
You got to put Jackson Hayes
unacceptable.
in there. You have to. And Jackson Hayes isn't the end all be all. He's not a great center, but he's somebody who can at least give a little bit of resistance. You can't just let Rudy Gobert run roughshod in the paint and just completely dominate you like that. He's never been that kind of big. He's not that kind of big. He just was a byproduct of him having a great opportunity against a very small lineup. Um, and JJ Redick kind of explained it as, oh well, when I play Jackson Hayes, we struggle to score. When I take Jackson Hayes out and we try to score more, we can't play defense in the paint. So that's kind of a flawed logic. I mean, I know you want to run small, but you can't jeopardize your post play and your post defense and your rebounding and your offensive rebounding and points in the paint by not playing Hayes at all. I mean, I can understand maybe playing him less minutes, but you got to give some resistance to the other team's center. You can't just have like 40-year-old LeBron trying to play the 5. So I thought JJ Redick, I mean, just a poor display from him. The previous game, he played all the starters the entire second half. LeBron, he's 40 years old. Luka's not in great shape. Austin Reeves doesn't play great defense as it is. So you're really, I mean, you're stress testing an already kind of, delicate situation with these guys, having to carry the load offensively as the three primary scorers, but also play enough defense to not look, horrible. And the three of them don't play great defense. So, both of them, all three of them trying to keep up the same energy on both sides of the ball. In the previous game and then coming back yesterday, they looked tired. LeBron in the fourth quarter looked like an old man, which he is. It was just a lot of frustrating, situations. Obviously, the roster construction isn't great. We would have loved for the Williams deal to go through at the trade deadline to give them at least some sort of, a force in the paint to give some type of resistance to the other team's big. But
I
overall,
think
just frustrating.
I think that was the biggest thing is this roster was constructed to have Mark Williams.
Yeah.
You look at Dalton Connect, he played absolutely uh no minutes other than the garbage time in one game. He was not a non-factor in the series.
Yeah.
Having Mark Williams would have definitely been a huge thing, but the fact that got vetoed or not vetoed, but
The
was
Lakers
unable.
turned it down
Yep, that
because of
they
the
turned
injury,
it
the
down
physical.
with the injuries after the trade deadline meant that they were unable to do anything and were stuck with the team.
Yep.
And Jackson Hayes, they tried to bring in Alex Len, who was an absolute disaster.
The guy's a
And
traffic cone.
that really seems like it's the downfall of their season. That and exactly what you're talking about is how tired they looked because they did not have the depth and their inability to close out in the fourth. They were outscored in every single fourth quarter. in the series. You know, we can talk about Luka getting hurt and being sick in game. Was it game 3?
Mhm.
We can talk about Reeves not stepping up, but
Yeah, he didn't look great this series.
that is ultimately the biggest thing.
And
Is
no, I think you're absolutely right, and I think that Austin Reeves can't be you're the third best player on a great team. I think he's a good fringe player. He's maybe a good 5 or a 6 man off the bench type of player. He can provide a spark. He's got a good handle. He's got a good jumper. He drives to the basket well, but he just doesn't play defense enough. Um, guess who was guarding him most of the series? It was Anthony Edwards, who had more length, more athleticism, more height, and he gave Austin Reeves a lot of problems and made him look very marginal in terms of a player they're going to have to depend on going forward with how the roster was constructed. So I think Reeves definitely failed in terms of being that third leg of the big three, and there's really no way of fixing that. He just got locked down by a more offensive, physically imposing player. But I think with the roster construction, I think if Reeves is maybe your fourth or fifth or even sixth best option, that's a really good team. But forcing him up to be the third best option and having to rely on him so much as a scorer in a situation like that against a team that has more size, length, and athleticism, it was just a recipe for disaster. But yeah, very frustrating. I guess the inevitable conversation we have every offseason with Mr. 40-year-old LeBron James after the season ends. Is he going to come back? Is he going to retire? I don't think he retires. He's still playing, at too high of a level, at
he's
least during
still
the
a
regular
top 10.
season.
He's still a top 10
Yeah,
player.
right.
I'm sure he sees with Luka, this is going to be one of his best chances to get a ring. There's a lot of talk about him taking a pay cut so that way they can sign more players. And there's also a lot of talk about, Giannis is not happy right now. Dame's going to be out the entire next season with torn Achilles?
Yep.
And you were talking about Austin Reeves not being the number 3. Are we willing to give up Austin Reeves and the rest of our team to get Giannis and build a big 3 around and like a squad around them?
They would have to. I mean, it's a tricky situation. So you have obviously Luka's the future, but Luka's often out of shape and doesn't play defense. LeBron is 40 years old, doesn't play defense, looked tired and old late in those games. Austin Reeves is more of a French player. They elevated him to a little bit more of a role than he probably should have had. Fell short. So out of that 3, you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do. Obviously, you're not going to be able to move LeBron. He's not going to retire. Luka's sticking around. I think Austin Reeves might be the odd man out in terms of finding a trade partner. I don't know how many first round or second round draft picks they have available to add into a deal like that, but Dorian Finney-Smith is a pretty decent wing defender. Maybe you can add him. Maybe a Jared Vanderbilt. There's some guys on the roster that maybe you could piece together and put together something somewhat appealing. But it's going to have to be better than what other teams offer for a Giannis. So they're kind of stuck right now. I mean, they're limited with the cap space. I think their cap hit next year is pretty limiting unless they can get creative with the payroll and everything like that. So this is probably going to be pretty close to how the roster is going to look next year, unless something drastic happens. And time is ticking for LeBron. I mean, I know the Lakers fan base is very divided on LeBron. I'm not a big fan of his. If he retired, I'd be thrilled. So they can just focus on building this team around Luka and moving on. But I think we're going to be stuck with him at least for another 2 years. He's not going to play great defense. He might, pull a groin again. So it's just something you're going to have to deal with. Yes, he can still have a good game. Yes, he's still pretty athletic and gifted on that side of the ball offensively. But it's just too many guys that don't play defense. There's not enough depth. There's not enough size. There's not enough length. Not enough athleticism. So they're kind of in a tough spot right now.
Yeah. LeBron is 100% polarizing. I know when talking with a lot of people, I always feel like I'm a LeBron apologist. Like I have to convince people like how good he is. The fact that he's a top 3 player of all time, just he's towards the end of his career. If you look at what Kobe and Jordan or guys that around his age were doing, they were out of the league or just not the same caliber that he is right now. One thing I will say is, as much as I do really, I love LeBron's game. It's his. I love LeBron. I hate LeGM, is what I'll say.
Oh my God, yes.
The fact that he
God,
feels that he has to run the team, get his people in, that he is the best basketball mind that there is.
All the clutch sports guys.
Just a lot of things like that. I do feel like a lot of people still have a lot of hate for the decision, how that was handled. That was a big stain on his career. And then the fact that he came out with his not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, stuff like that. But in terms of like the actual way that he plays the game, might be my favorite player out of all time. Just the way that he plays the game correct. People have criticized him for passing the ball too much, but they would rather him force up a bad shot and miss than set up a wide open player and then miss. He makes the right basketball decisions. He's probably the most athletic player I've ever seen. His chase down blocks are legendary. Obviously, we're going to talk about Game 7 in the NBA Finals. Stuff like that. But I just feel like it really is the off the court stuff and not him and like the person that he is, but like I was saying, the decisions that he forces on a franchise.
I might be the opposite of you here on LeBron, which is good because we can't always agree all the time. Growing up, I grew up, obviously, both of us did, with the Kobe Bryant. Killer instinct. Was a bit of a ball hog at times, but if you talk about, when they talk about basketball players, they talk about their bag. How's the footwork? How's the offensive skill? How many different ways can he make a basket? Can he drive to the cup? Can he hit a fadeaway? Can he, do all these different things? So watching Kobe my whole life, and then his mentality and how hard he worked in championships and blah, blah, blah. And then you have Mr. Force my kids way onto the team, Mr. flopping all over the court all the time, Mr. blames all his teammates and never takes accountability when the team loses. Mr. All I have to show for coming to LA was a bubble ring that a lot of people don't even take seriously. I think his Lakers tenure has largely been a failure. If they put a jersey up in the rafters, it would be an absolute disgrace to the numbers that are already up there because he's not an all-time great Laker. I think he is the most physically gifted basketball player of all time, but I don't think it's even a question to even compare him to Michael Jordan. I think it's disrespectful. I'm just not a big LeBron guy. I did not like when he came to LA because I thought it was to make Space Jam and to put his kids at Sierra Canyon and to push his career to the forefront, to wear a legendary uniform like the Lakers and build his brand even more. The clutch sports stuff, he brings in AD. They try to sign more free agents and nobody wants to play with LeBron. So, I mean, there's just so much that goes into it. I can't deny the fact that he's one of the greatest players of all time. He's definitely up there. He's accumulated a ton of numbers. He's obviously the all-time leading scorer. I don't think he's that great offensively. I think he, for the most, at least 7 or 8 years when he first got into the league, he was a bully down in the paint because he was just bigger and stronger than everybody else, and he was faster. He was jamming on dudes left and right. I don't think he developed a jump shot until he was probably in his 7th or 8th season. He had Kyrie hit a very clutch Game 7 3, like you mentioned in Game 7. You had Ray Allen save his ass again against the Spurs. Against Dallas in 2011, after LeBron put together, a U.S. Olympic team in Miami, LeBron came up short. He was guarded by J.J. Barea in spurts and was passing. If you're going to be the most physically gifted, one of the best basketball players of all time, and you're being guarded by J.J. Barea in the finals after you handpicked the Euro Super team and you flop against that team, the GOAT conversation ended in 2011, in my opinion, because that was one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen. LeBron looked scared. He looked timid. In the big moments down the stretch against Dallas, he was, deferring all the time. And I've come from the school of Kobe Bryant, man. Kobe's give me the damn ball. I'm gonna stuff it down your throat, or I'm gonna hit a fadeaway in your eyes. Killer instinct, clutch in the fourth quarter, 5-time champ. I just think it's it's unfortunate that we have to even have that kind of discussion, because obviously LeBron's one of the greatest of all time. But LeBron, I don't think LeBron's been fantastic for a long time. He's played 20 plus years, but look how often Steph Curry has won in the same era. I mean,
Right.
can we even say he's one of the greatest champions of his own era? He's got a losing record in the finals. He's lost 6 out of 10 finals. And if we're being honest, he went to so many finals in the East because he was beating up on DeMar DeRozan and the Raptors and Kyle Lowry all the time. Paul George and Roy Hibbert? Or is that going to be the biggest resistance to the finals? Look at him since he's been in the West. He's missed the playoffs a few times. There's a lot of first-round exits. You just haven't seen the same. Obviously, he's a little bit older now, and the team structures are different. But like you said, the GM, the guy's handpicking a lot of his teammates. He's a nodding yes and no on a lot of decisions being made there, and I think it's been a disappointment since he's been in LA. Honestly, I'm ready for it to be over with so they can start building around Luka and kind of try to formulate the roster the way Dallas had last season with some size in the paint. You had a good scorer like Kyrie. You had some good French players like PJ Washington, and they did get to the finals and they played the Celtics there last season, and then didn't go their way. And there is some criticism about Luka. He's not in shape often. Maybe he drinks too much. Maybe he eats too much. Maybe he doesn't take his training that seriously. But he's a mid-20s megastar who's one of the best scorers in the playoffs, one of the best scorers in the regular season. So someone to build around. But to end my rant, I can appreciate LeBron as a great all-time player. I just don't think he's the GOAT. I don't think he's an all-time great Laker. I think his Lakers tenure has largely been a failure, and I would not be happy if he retired tomorrow.
All right. I think on that, let's talk some NBA playoffs.
But tell me how you really think. Just kidding. The rest of the playoffs, what do we got tonight?
So tonight, I think the biggest thing we have to talk about is the Pistons and Knicks series. The ending of that game was absolutely ridiculous. The way that Jalen Brunson shook that defender, had him like 5 feet away and nailed the game-winning three.
Oh yeah,
that was incredible. What I will say though is previously I said I would take Cade Cunningham over Jalen Brunson. Cade Cunningham had the chance for the shot and passed it up, but like I said about LeBron earlier, he made the right basketball play. Rather than do a 28-foot fadeaway, he passed it to a wide open Malik Beasley, one of the best three-point shooters in the entire game, and Beasley completely dropped it.
Right through the fingers.
That is exactly how their season went. And it's very similar to how the Bucks season ended with Gary Trent Jr. dropping the ball and then setting it up for Tyrese Halliburton to win the series for them. We could also go back to LeBron was on a heater in one of the games, making absolute ridiculous threes. Luka throws him the ball, and he was trying to shoot it before he caught it and dropped it. That seems to be a big case that we're seeing in the NBA right now.
Just trying to shoot the ball before you got it. The rest of the playoffs has been, very fun to watch. I think the Warriors and Rockets series has been, really exciting as well. Golden State leads that series. Steph Curry's got I don't know if it's a sprained thumb or a lot of swelling going on there. A little bit of a controversial play, but that might affect, the rest of the series.
He's got a meatball on his finger.
Yeah, that thing looks
crazy.
Humongous. Denver, they're down by 7 right now, but playoff Murray, man. Every time Jamal Murray has a Los Angeles team across from him, he goes absolutely nuts.
He takes it personally.
For some reason, this guy hates Los Angeles. He's just been on a tear. He was on a tear last game. Tonight, Jokic is kind of carrying the load of scoring there, but I feel like the Clippers are the better team. They've shown it in spurts, and then it's just too little too late, especially in the last couple of games. I think Kawhi Definitely has to be better than he's been. But James Harden, you want to talk about a historically bad playoff choker type of player? My God. The guy, he's one of the greatest scorers we've ever seen. He's got great footwork. He's got a great step back. He's a great, all around basketball player. Not great defensively, more of a scorer. But what happens to him in the playoffs, man? He's having a good night tonight. He's 7 for 10, 2 for 3 from 3-point land. He's got 21 points. But, man, these last few games for him have not been great. So definitely something to follow there. That Jalen Brunson crossover of Thompson was Allen Iverson-esque. Like that was, I mean, to just consider that moment though, I think was it tied? I think it was
tied, yes.
Tied. One-on-one, and Thompson in a previous possession, not too far before that, kind of knocked the ball out of Brunson's hands, and it was a turnover. So he's not an easy defender to get around. Brunson crosses, puts him on ice skates, shatters his ankles in front of national television audience, and that was just nasty. Nailing that shot, that was big time. That was Kobe-esque type stuff right there. Give me the ball. I'm going to create my own shot, put this guy in skates, and let's get to the next round. So that was definitely fun to watch there. What did you think of some of the antics at the end of that Pacers series when you had Antetokounmpo and Halliburton's dad and mom going at it, and everyone going at Giannis all crazy? What do you think about all that stuff?
Absolutely ridiculous. Bad for the sport. Bad showing. Pacers are not. They might be the team most known for bad antics when it comes to storming courts. If you talk about the Malice in the Palace,
Mr. Artest.
But why, as a father, are you out there trying to fight and like get in Giannis's face when your team just won? There's such a thing as a poor winner, and that was poor sportsmanship right there. The fact that Tyrese Halliburton came out and criticized his dad because of it.
Yeah, he did.
That's embarrassing as a father. Like when your child is telling you that you did wrong to a national audience.
Yeah, to national media.
I couldn't handle that.
Yeah, you just can't have parents, fans on the court, especially after the heat of battle. These guys are jacked up on adrenaline. They're out there, very emotional, especially after you're losing a series and your season ends that way. So for Halliburton's dad to get out there and to be pressing a big old strong muscular dude like Giannis after the heat of battle, man, you're taking a risk. And good on Giannis for keeping his composure for the most part, not grabbing him by the throat and pile driving him into the damn floor, because some guys might have done that, and it took a lot of restraint for him not to do that. So good on Giannis. Then he came out after the game like, "Oh, you don't have the right to chirp at me like that. I won a championship. You have it." I was like, "Damn. Okay, Giannis, he's out there dropping facts and making sure he's regulating who's tripping and who's not." But I like Giannis overall. I think he's not a free agent next year, is he? Or does he still have another year with Milwaukee?
I believe he still has another year.
So unless he gets traded or whatever, he's probably going to be back. But yeah, definitely interesting there. I still think the Celtics are the favorite to get to the finals and win the finals.
I think it's
who's your favorite in the West right now?
OKC. I don't think it's anything. I think it might actually be OKC Golden State, but I think OKC just has the depth to take it on. Like when you have an Isaiah Hartenstein as a backup player, when you have
he's solid
guys like Alex Caruso coming off the bench,
he's a good player.
Like these are championship role players. Lakers won with Alex Caruso coming off the bench. He was a key player in there.
100%.
Run.
Wiggins is a good player. A couple of Williamses is in there. They got 3 different Williams on that team. That's a lot of Williams. They're a solid team. Part of me, maybe it's just because I watched the Lakers series very intently, but part of me kind of wants to pick the Timberwolves to win the West,
Mm,
I'm just so impressed with their depth, their length. They had a really bad shooting night last night. They're awful from three. Um,
15%.
Awful. They're terrible, and they still found a way to win. Anthony Edwards has a horrible game shooting wise, and they still finds a way to not only rebound, but pad some of his assist numbers and be make the right basketball plays, even though he's not scoring much. Mike Conley's out there shooting threes. Julius Randle looks really good. Gobert's a good post presence. Naz Reid is a good player. I mean, they just have guys. They got dudes up and down that roster that are pretty talented guys. So I mean, I would love to see an OKC and Timberwolves Western Conference Finals. I think that'd be box office. Warriors, I am concerned with Steph Curry's thumb. I mean, that looked horrible. There might be a torn ligament in there, possibly.
Mhm.
And it's his shooting hand. It's the most important hand attached to his body. So, I mean, maybe if it was his left hand, you'd be like, kind of helps hold the ball when he shoots. But the shooting hand itself, with a possible, torn ligament in there or something, with your thumb is so important to have on the ball when you're making jump shots. So, definitely tough for them. And tomorrow's going to show us a lot when it comes to the Warriors. Um,
I just I, I have come to the conclusion that I can never count out playoff Jimmy Butler. That dude
yeah,
has taken two Heat team to the finals that did not deserve to be there
it's true.
and just looked like the best player. So if you can get anything from Curry with playoff Jimmy, that is scary.
Yeah, it's true. Playoff Jimmy is he just feels like a guy you could trust. I mean, he's not a lights out 3-point shooter. He's not huge, but he just he slithers his way into the paint. He's great around the basket. He's got a good mid range game. He makes his free throws. Talk about some clutch free throws that he made down the stretch. I think he had 5 of them towards the end of that game that were just crucial to the final score there. So definitely, like you said, can't count out playoff Jimmy. Um, but yeah, overall, I think some of this is starting to shape out a little bit. To getting a clearer picture of what we're going to see. There's a possibility we might see a Nuggets and Clippers game 7. I don't
I would
think
love
either
that.
of them. It would be fun to watch. I think it'd be in Denver, right? Denver is the higher seed, so I believe they would get the last game if it
Yes.
was a game 7. Um, but I don't think either of them are really a threat to OKC or even Minnesota.
No.
I think Minnesota is a good team. I think OKC. I think those are the cream of the crop there. I would put Golden State third, especially considering what might be going on with Steph's finger. I think those are the top 3 to look for in the West. I think whatever happens with Nuggets and Clippers, is what it is. You win a playoff series, move on to get eliminated. So um, that is going to be that. So yeah, I
Yeah. So
think that kind of wraps up.
I want to bring up one last thing real quick.
Okay.
What did you think about the refs missing 2 key calls on Sunday when it was uh Luca, the trip on him, and then uh the missed foul at the end of the Pistons and Knicks game? Both times the NBA came out and said that they were wrong on those calls. What can they do to help make sure that something like that does not happen?
It's tough. I mean, I feel like sports in general right now, there's a lot of bad officiating in the NFL, in Major League Baseball, and especially in the NBA. I think the only way you might be able to fix it in the NBA is maybe giving these teams more challenges, or maybe opening more plays up to challenges, having as many eyes as possible on challenges, to make sure the right decisions are made. Because at the end of the day, getting it right is most important. You can't
Mhm.
have calls like that resulting in wins or losses for either side that's not deserved. These guys scratch and claw their way all regular season to have great records, to get into the playoffs and have a chance to, win playoff series and cement their legacy and go to the finals and win championships. So you got to have the best of the best referees out there. You got to give these teams as many replays and abilities to challenge calls as possible. I don't care if it slows down the game a little bit, as long as you get the call right. That's all. That's how I've been about it. I'm the same way about baseball. I don't mind replay. I don't mind it about calling balls and strikes either. As long as you get it right, I can wait 10 to 15 seconds for a review and make sure it's right. So um, I'd say
Yeah,
maybe just more replay, more review, more liberty to ask for one, more eyeballs reviewing them, and just trying to get those calls right.
I personally think they should have not just the officials on the court, but they should have an official off the court that is watching, like even just the live broadcast, and can be like, "Hey, we're seeing shots of this.
Right,
Let's take a look at it if it's close enough."
right,
Because you know, we're not talking about Jalen Brunson winning the series right now. If that was a 3-point shot, they were down one or two. If he makes his free throws, this is a different series,
right. 100%,
But
100%. Every point counts, especially late in the close game.
yeah,
Just got to
I
get
think it
those
should
calls
just
right.
be within 2 minutes. Things like that should not happen where they legitimately affect the overall outcome of the game.
100%. I agree.
All right. So next we have another polarizing topic. So Shador Sanders drops into the 5th round, drafted by the Cleveland Browns. Not even the first quarterback they take in the draft after drafting Dylan Gabriel from Oregon in the
Yeah.
3rd round. Uh, has made headlines not just for that, but also for the prank call that he received from uh, a coordinator's son, which let's talk about that first, and then we can talk about the slide. In my
Yeah.
opinion, that is just absolutely unacceptable. How
Yep.
does his number get out? He has a number that was legitimately just for uh, NFL GMs. Somehow that gets to a coordinator's son.
Hmm.
How do you punish the coordinator?
I saw a report, I think it was today, that the kid went on to his dad, who's the coordinator's iPad, and pulled the phone number from there,
Mm,
which is crazy. Why don't you have a lock on that iPad? Why don't you have, if there's sensitive information, contact information for guys in there, why is it so easily accessible? Which is just stupid. Um, I think the coordinator is being fined $100,000 for that. So that's, I mean, coordinators. I mean, some of the top ones make some good money, but I mean, $100,000 hurts.
oh yeah.
So that's definitely, they're coming down pretty heavy on that. I don't think any other coordinator going forward for NFL drafts in the future will be letting such sensitive information be so readily available to their kids. Um, and that $100,000 fine is going to be a tough lesson for him. But yeah, it's pretty crazy that these guys can get a hold of these college players waiting for a call so easily and trick them like that. It's just you know as a player, your heart probably sinks getting that call, and you're excited, you're nervous. Your family's watching, everyone's getting excited for you, and then it's just some kid talking shit. So it's like, damn,
Hmm.
that's pretty messed up. So, I mean, good in the NFL by coming down pretty hard and kind of sending a message there to make sure this kind of thing stops.
Yeah, you got to think this is a once in a lifetime opportunity for them.
Yep.
You only get drafted once. This is like you hear that phone ring, like you were saying. This is you're lighting up. Who is it? Uh, like if it had been captured on camera, that might have been even worse. And
Yep.
we had the footage leaked. Uh, I just uh, the immaturity, and then the fact that before it even got fully announced that he deleted his Twitter, knowing that the backlash and everything he was going to get,
Yep.
uh, just not a good look for that person moving on.
Yeah. I mean, terrible look for them. And there were some other players too that apparently, I guess a handful of other guys got some calls that were prank
Yeah,
calls and stuff
I
like
heard
that.
about
So,
Tyler Warren as well.
yeah. Colts legend in the making, by the way. I
All
can't wait to
right.
watch it, man. I'm pumped. So, what did you think about Shador sliding so far down into the draft? I mean, personally, if you would have told me before the draft that he'd be into the 5th round, I would have said you're a crazy person, and I would have put a lot of money on the fact that he would not fall that far. Um, but he did, and I was shocked. What did you think?
Absolutely shocked. I thought if he got into the 20s, someone was going to trade up and draft him. Someone did trade up and draft a quarterback, but it was New York Giants drafting Jackson Dart.
Yep.
When that trade was made, I was like, okay, they didn't trust him in the top 10. They wanted Abdul Carter, but they can get Carter and Shadir Sanders. That's a great draft. Still love the Jackson Dart pick. I think they were, pretty close. But I think it really has to do with the way that he handled himself and just all the stuff that we're hearing moving forward. I was hearing that he was throwing parties for the draft and flexing money
Oh
and
yeah.
just stuff like that. Just doesn't seem like the right type of the right type of look for you. You compare that with a guy like Jalen Milroe, who GMs fell in love with. Maybe not as talented as a pure passer, more athletic though. But one thing that was coming out as far as the draft process with him is that when GMs were asking him, "What are your biggest weaknesses?" he would go on for so long that they would ask, "Do you feel like, do you feel that you're giving away too much?" He goes, "No, you guys are gonna look at this and say the same thing once I'm gone.
Right.
Like I need to be aware of what my weaknesses are so I can improve upon them."
That's smart. Good on him.
I don't feel like Shador has that self awareness. I think he's cocky. He thinks he's the best that there is already. I think he's come out and said like any team that didn't draft him is going to regret it.
Yep.
I think that there's 32 teams that might regret it, including the team that drafted him,
Yeah. If
because
he
you look at how he has been in the draft process. What happens when the quarterback in front of him throws an interception? Are we going to hear from Shador on the sidelines? Are we going to hear from him on Twitter? Are we going to hear from him? Are we going to hear from
from
his
his
dad?
dad. Yep.
What is that going to be like for a locker room when you have a guy that's thinks that he's already the best there is and is not getting the playing time?
100%. And he had that. I think it's the picture you have up right there when he was talking to teams, and I think he says something along the lines of, "If you don't draft me, if you're not ready to like change the culture of your team or whatever like that." They said like, "Oh, why should a team draft you?" And he's like, "Oh, well, you should know like why to draft me. I'm this and that." And so not the most humble guy, especially he's not the most athletic dude. He doesn't have the strongest arm. His intangibles don't jump off the page at you. So, I mean, it's not like this is a Lamar Jackson with just unbelievable, measurable talent who's out there going, I'm the shit. Um, Shador, he's spoiled. He's got all these chains and everything on Twitter is hashtag legendary. And they built this whole studio, apartment looking room and decked it out for his eventual draft selection. And he had to wait. He was a day 3 pick. They went through all the trouble to build that room, put legendary everywhere, dollar signs everywhere, big old diamond chains, living it up. Guys, just out here doing the most. And he wasn't even taken on day 1 or 2. A 5th round pick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a pretty steep fall. Obviously, I think he has more talent than your usual 5th round pick, just because he was projected to be taken higher. He was, one of the top 3, maybe top 2 quarterbacks coming out of this draft. I don't think anyone, especially like Mel Kiper, who went absolute ape shit about Shador following every day. Mel Kiper was about to have an aneurysm if Shador fell another spot in the draft, which is absolutely crazy. He was really going to bat for him. Maybe those checks from Deion Sanders were hidden, huh, Mel? Just kidding. But it was crazy to watch. It was fascinating because obviously we all know, the elephant in the room. The guy's cocky as shit. He doesn't have the personality type you want from a franchise quarterback. He's going to rub people the wrong way. He's going to walk into that building thinking he's hot shit superstar. He hasn't played a single down in the NFL. This is the big boy league, and a lot of these guys are out there, putting their health at risk every day. They're out there scratching and clawing to keep a roster spot, to put food on the table for their families. not every guy in the NFL is making $10 million a year. There's a lot of practice squad guys and other fringe guys who are out there, trying to do the little things every day to keep a roster spot and get paid. So, do you really want the leader of your franchise to, the leader of men as the quarterback to be a guy like this who's very entitled, very cocky, all those different things? And it rubbed us the wrong way. I don't blame them one bit. He free felt it was a absolute free fall. And like you said, the Browns took Dylan Gabriel first before taking Shador. And when you saw, some of the front office personnel for the Browns after they made the pick, they're like fake golf clapping, and all of their faces look like someone just, put a horrible smelling sock in their face or something. Like the guys look miserable. They did
Yeah, I
not look
definitely feel
thrilled
like
about that pick. And
it felt like it came from the GM. It didn't seem
yeah,
like it was
or
the
maybe the
scouts
owner.
that were there. Yeah.
And it's an awkward
It was
conversation because Shador's going to say, "Oh, cool, thanks for drafting me. Why'd you take Dylan Gabriel ahead of me?"
mhm.
So, like, what do you say to that? And that quarterback room is crowded. Obviously, you got Watson, you got Joe Flacco, Colts legend. You got Dylan Gabriel in there. You got Kenny Pickett, and then you're going to have Shador in there. So, I mean, it's gonna come down to how do these guys compete in training camp? What does the preseason look like? What are the Browns willing to do with who looks the most ready? Do you want a veteran like Flacco or Kenny Pickett in there to start? Do you want Shador to sit? Do you like Dylan Gabriel more because he's a little bit more athletic, even though he's undersized? It's going to be fascinating to see how that whole thing plays out. And if they're not doing hard knocks for that quarterback room already, they should.
So, funnily enough, they're actually not doing hard knocks for an NFL team this year.
Oh wow!
That there was so much discourse over how the Giants GM talked about they had on camera about him letting go Saquon Barkley and everything that no NFL team would sign up this year. And so they're actually going to be with the North Carolina Tar Heels.
Oh no!
So we're going to
That
get to see
whole
Bill Belichick.
talk about a weird situation, an entitled, person. That new girlfriend of his is big trouble.
Oh, but she didn't know he had money.
She is a snake. I read a I read a story this morning that within a somewhat short period of time of meeting Bill Belichick, she acquired three different properties, real estate properties, all three worth over $1 million, all within the span of days. So that relationship is definitely. I think we can all see the writing on the wall there, and what's going on there a little bit. Sugar Baby is getting her money's worth, literally and figuratively. So very interesting move for Bill there.
All right. So I'm going to take over a little bit more for this next section. I'm more of the NFL draft guy, but I wanted to talk about the top 5 drafts real quick. So, my top 5 teams that I have are the Ravens, who I'm going to put a big asterisk on this because they do have, Malachi Starks was a huge steal. They also got an extreme steal in the second round with one of maybe the top 10 prospects in the league, Mike Green, the edge out of Marshall. But that was only because of extreme off the field concerns, kicked off of multiple teams. Top prospect who ends up playing at 2 seasons at Marshall, wasn't even clean when it comes to Marshall. But in the second round, it's one of those things where we just talked about Shador and his off the field antics. Where do teams place off the field and publicity stuff like that over talent? To get back to more positive note, Emory Jones, the tackle out of LSU in the third round, also a great pick. Just feel like those top 3 are just absolutely incredible. My number 2 draft that I just fell in love with was the New York Giants first round top 5 pick, Abdul Carter from Penn State. Absolute monster. Looks like the second coming of Micah Parsons. Then they trade up in the first to grab quarterback Jackson Dart out of Ole Miss. We talked about him a little bit during the Shadir Sanders stuff. Really great. Just a baller out there. Will leave his body on the line to win. And they also, with some later picks, had in the third round defensive lineman Darius Alexander out of Toledo. Steal right there. And one that you'll know, Sean, is in the fourth round they got running backs Cam Scatabo out of Arizona State.
I like him a lot.
I think he might not be big enough to be like an every down back, but bring him in on third downs and passing plays, and he can do amazing.
Yeah.
I was also really happy with the Panthers. I have them as my number 3. In the first round, they take wide receiver Tate McMillan out of Arizona. Just absolute monster. Number 1 wide receiver on my board. Second round, they go edge Nick Scorton, Texas A&M. Third round, they get edge Prince. Oh my gosh, Uman Milan out of Ole Miss. Stud. But then their late round picks as well. In the fourth round, they get running back Trevor Etienne from Georgia, the brother of Travis Etienne, who we've seen have absolutely incredible seasons. Injuries have definitely derailed his career so far, but we also get Jimmy Horn Jr. in the 6th round out of Colorado.
Good player.
There were times where he was having bigger games than Travis Hunter out there.
100%. Yep.
He might be more of a big play guy than Travis Hunter, but getting him in the 6th was an absolute steal. Those are definitely my top 3, without a doubt. The next 2, Cardinals also had a great draft, went completely defensive heavy after getting a really nice core of Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, and James Conner on offense. They went with defense lineman Walter Nolan from Mississippi. Big, huge run stopper that can pass rush. Get an absolute steal in the second round, getting cornerback Will Johnson out of Michigan. Should have been a first-round pick, but injury concerns are there. Third round, they get edge Jordan Birch out of Oregon. Again, another great player. But my actual, another late round pick that I thought was absolute steal is they get Denzel Burke, the cornerback out of Ohio State. Should have been a second or third round pick to me. Drops to the 5th. And then I hate to say this, but I actually really like the Cowboys draft.
How about them Cowboys?
So they get a replacement for Zach Martin with Tyler Booker. If the Cowboys have done anything in the last 10 years, they've shown that they can draft offensive linemen and develop
100%.
them. They get edge Donovan Iziraku out of Boston College. Again, please don't make fun of me for these name pronunciations. And then I even really liked in the 5th round, they take running back Jaden Blue out of Texas. I feel like he can step in and contribute right away. And then just real quick, a couple honorable mentions. The Chiefs taking tackle Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Ohio State was obviously one of the most loaded teams after winning the national championship. But also another huge steal in the 4th round, they get wide receiver Jalen Royals out of Utah State. I think fantasy-wise, he could actually end up being a huge contributor and in 2 to 3 years be one of their top 2 receivers. And then the Bears getting a few huge key playmakers for Caleb. Obviously, they lose Keenan Allen, but they bring in tight end Colston Loveland out of Michigan. Now they compare him with Cole Kmet. Kmet can play better as a number 2 due to his lack of athleticism a bit. Colston is more of like a the tight end that their new offensive or new head coach. What's his name? The guy from Detroit.
Ben Johnson.
Ben Johnson, yes, the guy that he likes. And then in the second round, they get an absolute steal in wide receiver Luther Burden, the third out of Missouri. He was a 5-star recruit, one of the top guys receiving, and as well as like after the catch. Didn't have as great of a year last year, but that was mostly due to his quarterback play, but absolute stud. So what are your thoughts on some of those drafts, Sean?
Um, I thought there was some. I really like. I agree with the Giants did. I think they got some impact players that can make a, make a change. Not make a change, but contribute early. Scadaboo, I think Jalen Carter. You said who they took early. He's a great player. We saw him when Penn State played USC. The guy was a monster. Um, love what the Colts did, taking our man Warren there. That's fantastic. I think the Ravens always draft well, like you said. That was a really good, solid situation there. Um, overall, it wasn't the deepest quarterback draft. Obviously, a lot of the sexy picks every year are, where the top quarterbacks go and where's the top 2 or 3 wide receivers, the best running backs. JT went to the Raiders. I think that's going to be a good fit for them there. But overall, there wasn't a lot of sexy names that a ton of people that are, casual followers familiar with. But I think there was some good storylines. Obviously, the Shador situation where he fell so far in the draft was a juicy storyline that definitely drove some attention towards the draft. But I think it's going to be a fun season. A lot of good young talent coming into the league, and it's going to be exciting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I feel like there was a lot of good drafts. It was very hard for me to pick a top 5. The top 3 were locked in, but the rest, like I wanted to talk about the Browns draft as well. A couple others like the Colts. I tried to not pick them as be too much of a homer there,
Yeah.
but really interesting. It seems like this is one of the best drafting years. Obviously, it's yet to be seen. This is all on paper at the moment, but very few terrible drafts that you would just say, I don't agree with who they took.
Yeah,
But
nothing really sticks out in terms of like some crazy reach or something like that. So definitely going to be interesting to see how some of these guys figure into their new teams. But I will say, I think you are ready to give Mel Kiper Jr. a run for his money. So send this tape to ESPN and let's get some fresh blood in there.
all right. Let's see. I just got to slick my hair back like he does.
Oh, man. They played some videos, some throwback videos of some of his takes from back in the day, and they were hilarious. He's been doing this thing since the 80s. It's absolutely crazy.
It's one of those things where you absolutely have to give him his credit. He is
100%.
like the founder when it comes to draft analysis.
Yep.
But man,
he's top shelf. He's a character, though. He's a character.
He's more of a character than he is an analyst at this point.
100%, especially with how crazy he was going for Shador. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen an analyst or a media guy like that go that crazy in a while.
Exactly. All right, so let's talk about some NFL news. So, as we know, Aaron Rodgers has yet to come to a decision about where he will play or whether he will play. I used to be an absolutely huge Aaron Rodgers fan, but I thought he was the most talented quarterback I had ever seen for a long time when he was early days in Green Bay. But these past few years, I'd say the past 3 or so, has just put a big stain on his legacy, in my opinion.
100%.
The fact that he waits and doesn't seem committed to playing, that he has to go on his ayahuasca trips to figure out, oh, who do I want to play with? Do I want to play? Is starting to become like the lead GM that we talked about earlier, bringing in his guys. Alan Lazard is not the receiver that Aaron Rodgers thinks he is. I want someone to love me the way he does Alan Lazard.
Alex Cobb as well.
And it's just, it's become too much for me. I'm actually hoping, in my opinion, that Rodgers comes to the decision quickly and we can put this to rest. What are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, 100%. He's kind of following in the footsteps of Brett Favre. Very
Mm-hmm.
wishy-washy towards the end. Nobody knows when he's actually going to retire. If he's not, um, there was some talk that he really wanted to go to Minnesota. Throwing to Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Having weapons like that, playing indoors. I think that would have been a really good situation for him. But I think they're going to go with JJ McCarthy going forward to start there. Um, there was some rumblings this morning. I was watching a show and they were talking about how there's a possibility that he might be interested in San Francisco. I know they haven't agreed to a new deal with Purdy, so there might be some, there might be a mutual interest there. I know Kyle Shanahan would probably have a good time, working with Rodgers' ability. I think he still can throw the ball nice. I think he's got a really he throws a tight spiral. His arm is still strong enough to make good throws. I think down the stretch last season he showed that he can still make plays. So you put him with Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle, and I know Debo's gone, but I think Ayuk will be healthy as well. I think I forget
Mm-hmm.
what injury he had. Um, Jennings is a pretty good option there as well. So it might be intriguing if he were to find his way into a 49ers uniform. But I think the landing spot for him most likely will be Pittsburgh. Because San Francisco's already got Purdy. I think they'll end up working something out there in terms of a new contract. Um, it just feels like he's going to be a Steeler. I mean, I know it's not ideal for him to be playing in the AFC North, having to face the Ravens and tough weather and tough field conditions and all those kind of things that come with it. Um, but he's kind of out of options here. I think he wants to play with a team that's going to be somewhat of a contender. Obviously, he's probably on his last season or two until he retires. So um, probably going to get paired up with Mike Tomlin and see where they go from there. But yeah, the wishy-washiness and all the craziness is just, I'm kind of over it.
Yeah, it really feels like Pittsburgh or bust right now. If he doesn't go there, I don't see another place where he can just start right away.
Hmm.
It could be a situation where the season starts, he doesn't pick a team and they wait until there's an injury or something and he comes in as a replacement, which obviously would not be ideal because he
Right.
wouldn't have the reps with everybody there.
Got to learn a whole new
But
system.
uh, with Pittsburgh, I think if he goes to Pittsburgh, they're an immediate contender.
Yeah.
They have done so well. They have not had a losing season under Mike Tomlin. He's consistently taking them to the playoffs in, like you said, a very tough division. And they've done so with guys like Mitch Trubisky,
Yeah.
Kenny Pickett,
Russell Wilson.
Russell Wilson, Mason Rudolph.
Yep. Mason
So
Rudolph.
you give them a quarterback like Rodgers, even if he just becomes uh, you know, 75% of what he was, that's still 50% better than any of those guys.
Yeah, 100%.
And
A
then
topic
you
a
go ahead.
topic I wanted to run by you as a Colts homer myself. Um, it's kind of felt like this could be AR's last season, trying to figure it out. Is he going to be the guy? Is he not going to be the guy? Can he throw more accurately? Can he put together some of those insane athletic tools and become more of a complete quarterback? Can he stay healthy? The Colts bring in Daniel Jones, so everyone wants to pretend like there's some sort of a quarterback controversy there, but there's not. Jones is going to be the backup. AR is going to start. Um, there's some good offensive players on this team. Jonathan Taylor, they're wasting his prime a little bit until the quarterback situation get figured out. Alex Pierce is a great deep threat. Obviously, we got a big tight end coming that's going to be fantastic to watch. Downs is a great wide receiver as well. So there's talent there. Um, they're just missing the quarterback. So can
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Richardson take the next step in terms of being more accurate more consistently, and then staying healthy, staying on the field, sliding, avoiding those big hits? What is your take on the AR and Daniel Jones quarterback situation on the Colts?
Yeah, I don't think there's actually a real situation like you were saying. Um, it is kind of sad though to think that last year Flacco was completely outplaying Richardson.
Yeah,
Just from a fantasy wise, you saw that the receivers did so much better when Flacco was in versus Richardson.
yeah, Pittman.
Uh, yeah, Pittman was an absolute travesty when Richardson was in.
AR
Richardson,
was in there. Yeah,
he looks for the big play every play, which is not the correct thing. He
right.
needs to look for more dump downs, more easy completions. He's at or under right around 50% for completion percentage, one of the worst in the league. He has all the physical skills, but the biggest thing is he is only 22 years old right now. He is still a kid. At this point in his career, Josh Allen, who a lot of people have compared him to, was in a very similar situation, thought of as a bust, thought of as can only make the big play or with a run or stuff like that. And we've seen how he's developed into arguably the best quarterback in the league right now.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to say that I see that from Anthony Richardson. I don't know if I see the love for the game from him as much as I did from Josh Allen.
Right.
I also don't know if I see the overall coaching that he had. We do have Shane Steichen, but Brian Daboll was the offensive coordinator for uh, the Bills at the time, known as a quarterback whisperer. Was able to get the best season of Daniel Jones that we've ever seen. How much did that play a factor in it? Right
Right.
now, I don't feel like our offensive coordinator is up to that level. We're relying mostly on Shane Steichen,
Right.
but he has to deal with an entire team as well. He can't just focus
Yeah,
on one player.
it's true.
I feel like he was the biggest boom or bust player I think I might have ever seen when it comes to quarterback. There's tape on him where he looks like the best player in the draft, and then there was plays where, not plays, but entire games where you did not want to watch it. You just said, okay, we just have to throw this out and hope that this is not the player that he really is.
Mm-hmm.
He was exposed a lot of times playing in the SEC, and I was 100% hoping that the Texans would go with him and CJ Stroud would fall to us,
Oh, I want to Stroud so bad.
but that's not the way it played out. And, I'm going to throw out a crazy situation is if the Colts fail this season, Anthony Richardson is not the guy. The Colts
I
end
think I
up
know
with
where
the
this is
number one
going.
pick.
I think I know where this is going.
Does a Manning come back to Indianapolis?
I knew it was coming to that. I knew it. We can't help ourselves. We can't help ourselves. All we'd have to do is bring in Arch Manning. We have to go get Marvin Harrison Jr. from the Cardinals, and then draft T.Y. Hilton's son, and then we'd have the trifecta. But then Andrew Luck would just have to pop out a kid, and we'd have to go get that one too. But um, I I would love to sit here and say I'm optimistic about AR, but I'm not. Um, he misses so many layups, so many
Mhm.
timing plays, so many slants across the middle that are just airmailed, dumping it off to a running back, and he either bounces it in front of them or he throws it over their head. Um, Little out routes, little curl routes down the sideline, balls way over their head into the sideline. He skips passes. I mean, it's there's so many little, you know, layups that NFL quarterbacks are supposed to make on a consistent basis that he cannot make. Sure, he can, throw a ball 75 yards with three dudes hanging off his back occasionally, and that makes up most of the yardage he gets in the game. But how many times can the guy start a game 4 for 17 and expect the Colts to have a chance to win the football game? You just can't. So he's gonna have to take a huge leap this year in terms of his accuracy, his decision making. Like you said, there's been some questions about his commitment to the game. How much is he studying film behind the scenes? How much is it work ethic? Um, does he even want to be a franchise quarterback? I mean, is he doing the things behind the scenes that the best of the best do? He's not a Peyton Manning. He's not Tom Brady. He's not a tape, obsessed guy like that. But You don't have to be. You just got to show a little bit more than what he's already shown. And I think some of the rumblings coming out of the Colts, some anonymous players making some comments, there's some cause for concern there. And I think everyone was excited about Steichen getting an Anthony Richardson type because he did a really good job with Jalen Hurts when they were in Philly. But it's kind of looking like maybe Steichen was more of a coordinator type and maybe not a head coach type. The jury's still out on that. They could be, a good season this year, and maybe everyone improves altogether at everything that they do in terms of the quarterback, the head coach, all those different things. But it's going to be hard for AR to improve and get the reps if he's constantly hurt. The guy he's got big muscles. He's strong. He's big. He looks physically imposing, but the guy to this point has been made of glass. Every time he falls down a certain way, he's coming out of the game. He's tapping on his helmet when he's out of breath. That was a huge controversy last year. He was tired, so
I
he
couldn't
tapped
believe
out.
that.
Pat McAfee on his show was going, "Are you crazy? I've never heard of that before. I've never even seen that." So, there's just so many really weird moments with Anthony Richardson, and you just see a physically imposing, a guy just that has measurable physical attributes off the charts. He can jump high. His arm is super strong. He can sprint super fast. He can run linebackers over, and you're like, God, this guy's Superman. But he can't do the little things that a quarterback has to do throughout a game. Pick apart a defense, read coverages, change the play at the line audible, take the layups when they're there, not force the ball into triple coverage. So there's a huge step that we need to see AR take this season, or the Colts are going to have to think about going a different direction. And I think that's why they did. I think they spent 14 or 15 million on bringing in Daniel Jones in on a 1-year deal to be the backup. That's going to be their security blanket because I don't think they expect that Anthony Richardson can stay healthy. They don't want to be in a position where they're going to have to put a 45-year-old Joe Flacco out there off the couch to try and save whatever is left of their season. I think there was like 7 or 8 weeks left when Flacco came in last year. So I would like to say my hopes are up for AR, but they're not. I don't expect him to take these next steps. But if he did, it's huge for this team because there's some good players on defense. There's some good offensive personnel. Obviously, the running back is an all-pro, Jonathan Taylor. This is a team ready to make the playoffs and, make some noise in there with some of the guys they got. And, they're just going to keep being held back by the quarterback position until AR can take that next step. So if we could wave a magic wand and bring Andrew Luck back, I think we'd all do that. But unfortunately, we can't.
Yeah. Speaking of Andrew Luck, I saw a really depressing thing that said after the season, he will have spent more time retired than he did playing.
It's just ridiculous. He's only 35.
Yep.
He's not that old. He could still be
No.
perfectly fine playing good. Imagine how many years, looking back, the Colts would have been, in contention, being a pain in the ass to the Chiefs and Pat Mahomes every year with Andrew Luck, doing his thing. It's just one of the most.
I think it was 2019 when they drafted Big Q. They got Darius Leonard.
Yep.
Just guys like that. They had one of the best drafts we've seen in a long time. That was the year that was their year. I think that was the Phillip Rivers year where we went like 11-5, 10-6, made the playoffs.
Played the Bills, I think, right?
Yes, and played them tough, but
yeah, they did. Close game.
It's it'll be a forever what if.
Oh, it makes me sick. This is a very outrageous comparison. I probably shouldn't even do it, but I think obviously the most devastating moment for me as a sports fan when Kobe's helicopter went down with his kid and all the family and stuff in it. The second most devastating moment after that was Andrew Luck retiring prematurely. It felt like someone took a spear and threw it straight through my body. Like I wanted to fall to my knees in devastation. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was fake. I thought it was, memes being created, joking around and stuff. And when he hit that podium and he was in tears and oh my God, it's just like my man crush Monday left the game a little too early.
I have a hypothetical that I want people in the comments to react to. Looking back on it, would the Colts have been better bringing back Peyton Manning and trading that number 1 pick, or would you still try and take the chance on Andrew Luck and try and rebuild an offensive line around him?
I would have done Luck because I think there was too much uncertainty with the injury situation Peyton was dealing with. He had to have the spinal fusion in his neck. There was reports of nerve damage and his inability to grip a football at all.
Mhm.
So there was a lot of serious concerns there. And if you were going to choose between a potentially compromised Peyton Manning and potentially getting a 6'4", 230-pound Andrew Luck, who was an engineer from Stanford who can run over linebackers. I'd probably take Andrew Luck 10 out of 10 there, but hindsight's 2020. You really can't. It's kind of hard to go back in time and try to rehash the whole situation. And good for Peyton for winning a championship in Denver. To get that second ring. It was good to see it. It was good to see. Kind of sucked it wasn't as a Colt, but things happen. Just I will never forgive Ryan Grigson for not building a good enough O line and protecting Andrew Luck. And it's one of the most tragic what if stories, that we can think of. And being Colts fans, absolutely devastating. They haven't recovered since. It's been the quarterback merry-go-round. It's like those Browns fans that have the jerseys with like 22 quarterback names all the way down from top to bottom. That's kind of what the Colts are right now. I mean, how many Jacoby Brissett years and Kerry Collins and Curtis Painters and how many? I think Curtis Painter was before Andrew Luck, but it's been the Phillip Rivers. It's been the quarterback merry-go-round.
Carson Wentz,
Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz. It's just been a cluster of washed old guys, players that aren't impact quarterbacks that they don't take the team to the next level. And the Colts have just kind of been in the middle of the pack. You got to either be really bad to get a great quarterback in the draft, or you got to be really good and compete for playoff spots and making playoff runs. If you're right there in the middle, the 8-8 range, there's really not a whole lot you can do unless some miracle happens and a quarterback falls to you. But the Colts did have a high draft pick. They took Richardson with it. And so far it hasn't panned out, which is unfortunate because that was their opportunity to get. I wanted them to trade up and try to get Stroud. I wanted them to be aggressive. I thought Stroud was worth it. They obviously didn't do that. Ballard is very picky with how he, moves other trade pieces and draft positions and that kind of thing. So it was kind of a pipe dream, and we got what we got. I tried to convince myself that AR would be a good pick. Looking at his tape, he's athletic. He's got a super strong arm. Oh my God, there's huge potential there. But so far, I've been so disappointed, and I really haven't seen anything to be that hopeful about unless he comes out this season as just a completely different player. So we'll see.
Exactly. All right. So on that downer note, let's talk about some baseball.
There's a reason I have a Jonathan Taylor jersey and not an Anthony Richardson jersey. I'll just put it that way.
All right. So there's also a reason why I'm pretty sure you're wearing a Judge jersey and not a Soto jersey.
That is true. That is true.
So one big news story in baseball has been the struggles of Juan Soto. What do you feel about that?
It's shocking. I think he's one of the most complete hitters in all of baseball. He was a rock star last year as a Yankee from the beginning of spring training all the way to the World Series. He was a rock for them offensively. Obviously, he has his defensive deficiencies. He's not a great right fielder. There's going to be some moments where he makes some boneheaded plays out there, and you just kind of got to live with it. But you take the good with the bad. You take the generational bat, and you kind of shrug off the defense. But there is some pressure he's feeling here. He's taken, I think, the richest contract in Major League history. I think it surpassed Ohtani's. He got every bell and whistle you could possibly want from Steve Cohen as a Met. He got the extra suite for his family. He even has a spending allowance on a consistent basis for his mom to get new clothes. That's a real thing. Mama has a clothing allowance in Juan Soto's contract. So, there's a lot of pressure on him. There's a lot of eyeballs on him. I think some of that is weighing on him, and which is one of the reasons he's struggling a little bit. But just as I was talking about him struggling this morning, guess what he did this afternoon? He hit 2 home runs. So maybe the struggles are over, and maybe he's going to get back to being Juan Soto. But it's definitely been interesting to see him struggle like this because I think we both know he's a much better hitter than he's shown so far.
Exactly. I definitely feel like this is kind of getting back to when he was traded to San Diego, and definitely struggled a while. Again, using the word struggling with Juan Soto is him hitting like 270
Yep.
with a 360 on base percentage.
Yep.
But when we put that compared to some of his best years, he's not playing like he has been.
Right.
I think that maybe it's just something with him, but free agency and being the talk of the town.
Yep.
It's difficult. It's not something that it's not a video game. You don't just put a player on a team and they perform exactly like they did before.
100%.
There's
They're
routines
humans.
they got to do. There's outside aspects that go into it. Obviously, it's not going from the Mets or the Yankees to the Mets is not as big of a thing as going across the country, like we talked about last week with Roki Sasaki.
Right.
But I feel like it's also just baseball. There are a
Yep.
lot of players, and we were very early into the season. There are a lot of
100%.
players that were struggling. One of the biggest storylines of the first week or two was Rafael Devers going over 22 with like 17 strikeouts.
Yep.
And now he's back in the swing of it.
100%.
So I feel like it's just one of those things. The one thing I do feel that is going to stay consistent is just how hot Aaron Judge is right now. If he can stay healthy, we could be looking at one of the all-time great seasons, which
100%.
unfortunately I don't want to say and put that out there because we know the caster's curse is a real thing. But I'm a Dodgers fan, but I'm a baseball fan even more than that. And just seeing what Aaron Judge does is absolutely incredible. Since he came into the league, he has been a top 5 player. Puts up some of the most ridiculous stat lines. Hits the ball harder than probably anybody in the league. Just when he hits that ball, it's gone.
Yep.
So extremely excited to see what he can do if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, it's crazy to see. I mean, he's had 117 at bats this season, and he's hitting 427, which is just it's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. His OPS is over 1200. He's pushing 1300 there, which is absolutely crazy. There was a post I think from MLB Network this morning comparing Judge's last 162 games to one of Barry Bonds' best 162 game seasons, and they're very comparable. I think in Judge's last 162, he has like 64 home runs, hitting like 3 something. It's just absolutely insane. And when you think about the caliber of pitching Judge is facing on a daily basis today, plus the fact that he's not doing steroids like Bonds was, it just makes things even more unbelievable. So especially a guy who's, I mean, this isn't like Ichiro or Tony Gwynn or Luis Arias, slapping singles around hitting 340. This is a dude who's 6'7", 285 pounds, looks like an NFL tight end or an NBA power forward or small forward, out there holding a small wooden bat, crushing baseballs 450 feet. Like, it's crazy. This guy could have played any sport. I mean, he was a football player, a basketball player, and a baseball player in high school. He was great at all of them. He probably could have got recruited and done whatever he wanted. He chose baseball, and he's one of the most historically great right-handed hitters we've ever seen. So it's cool that he's on my team. Like, that's awesome. That's pretty cool. But something that has been splitting the Yankees fan base this season, especially, has been, we all expect the crazy historic regular seasons from Judge, but we still have a bad taste in our mouth from October. So there's a lot of fans who are kind of like, cool, but let's wait till the playoffs. And there's other
Right.
fans that are saying, the playoffs are the playoffs. We'll worry about it when we get there. Let's enjoy watching a historic player do what he's doing in the regular season, and we'll criticize the playoffs when we get there. Um, I think I'm right in the middle. I mean, you got to appreciate what we're watching right now because we might not ever see it again. Um, I do still have a bad taste in my mouth for the World Series because it was a tough loss and he really played poorly, especially after having an MVP type regular season. You expect him to continue that in October, and he didn't. So he's a. It feels like Peyton Manning, A Rod, and LeBron before they won rings. Incredible regular seasons, multiple time MVPs. Got to get that championship though to solidify that legacy. But on a day-to-day basis, he's one of the most fun players to watch every day, and I'm excited he's on my team.
Yeah. Speaking of fun players on my team, Shohei Ohtani is back in the swing of it.
He's hitting again.
Yeah. I took Shohei #1 in fantasy over Aaron Judge, and honestly, I've been regretting it. But the last couple days, you know, it's been fun to watch. I got my Panda plate today too. Dodgers won. Yeah, they've been absolutely smacking the Marlins around. Kike Hernandez came in and pitched with a batting helmet.
That helmet was crazy looking.
Uh, one of the reasons they said that they put him in is because it was like Women's Day at Dodger Stadium, and the women love Kike.
Oh yeah, they do.
So
He's a
just
he's a crazy player. Yeah, and it was kind of interesting to see Otani struggle early on because we all know how talented he is. And like Judge last season, Otani had just a stupid, ridiculous year with numbers, just eye popping numbers, 50-50, which is absurd when the first player to ever do that. Um, you know, it's funny because he's struggled, quote unquote, and he's still hitting 287. He's got a 950 OPS over 150 at bats, 115 at bats. So still
mhm.
a really, really good player. He's among the league leaders in home runs. He's got 9 stolen bases already, so he's probably going to push 40-40, 50-50 again, just like last season. So, his last 15 games, it was hitting about 260, but his last 7, more recently, is hitting 321. So he's starting to come around. And this is kind of, early on in the season, we don't really read into veteran players struggling much. Um, especially Otani just had a new kid, so he's probably thinking about that, kind of being away from the family after having a new baby. So that could play a part in it. But um, yeah, talking about getting the Marlins into town, that's one way to make sure everyone starts feeling good about themselves after you beat up on those guys. So the Dodgers took care of business like you expected them to, and now all is right in Dodger land. But what's going to be really interesting, calendar just switched to May 1st. At the end of this month, we got the Yankees back in Dodger Stadium. So that's going to be must-watch television for sure after that World Series debacle that they left off with last time they faced off.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that.
I'm sure you
Hopefully,
are.
hopefully I can make it to one of those games.
Heck yeah,
Although
I'll be there. So let me know. We'll go together.
honestly, last game I went to, we saw Paul Skeens against the Dodgers. Man, just the being at the game was fun, but getting in and out of Dodger Stadium
Oh,
is one of the worst experiences you will ever have. Like as a kid, I loved going to Dodge games. I didn't think anything of it. It was just like, oh, cool, we get to go to the Dodge game.
right.
As an adult, it is painful
Oh, it's
getting
awful.
in, getting out, parking, the price of parking, paying for food, beverages, all that. The seats are small.
Yep.
Like I was
You
just
might.
like, man, I don't know if this is it anymore. I got a 75-inch TV. This shit looks better than I can't see what's going on from where it is, and I paid
Heck yeah.
a good amount for the seat.
Heck yeah. Oh, the prices definitely went up after they won the World Series, bring Otani
Oh
in.
yeah,
The Dodgers are basically the ambassadors to Japan now. So the more great Japanese players you bring in, the more the prices go up. So definitely going to be interesting to see how those prices play out. That Dodgers and Yankees series is going to be expensive. I'm hoping, I like to use TickPick or or some of these other like secondary market apps to get my tickets. So hopefully there's some discounted stuff going on there. But
FYI,
yeah, it's
we are not
expensive.
affiliated with them, but if you would like to, reach out
Yeah,
to us.
100%. I like TickPick. So if you want to hit us up, let's go. But God forbid you drink a beer at Dodger Stadium. It's $22 or 18 or
Right.
whatever the hell it is. So it's like, damn, you know, you got to take out a second mortgage to afford a beer and a hot dog at Dodger Stadium. So you
Oh,
know,
one of the things that pissed me off the most was last time we went to the game is, they don't have like the people at the stand handing you the hot dogs anymore and you pay for it.
oh
They have like the bins of hot dogs. You go, you grab it, you hand it to the person, the cashier, and you have the cashier doesn't do anything. They just tell you, oh, swipe your card. And then on the kiosk thing, they ask, do you want to give a tip?
yep,
When this person has done absolutely nothing but sit there and point at the little kiosk. Like, no, I'm not going to tip. I always tip
shameless
when
man.
it for other stuff. Like, I feel like
Right,
that's important for servers and
100%.
DoorDash stuff like that.
Yep,
But the that's a whole other thing. But
yeah.
oh my
To hand
god,
me a damn
I
hot
was
dog,
pissed.
I don't know. I
No, they
mean,
didn't even hand me
and
the hot dog. I handed them the hot dog so they could scan it.
oh no, what a joke. Um, what I hated was during COVID, they stopped having beer vendors out in the stands. So now, if you want to go get a beer, you have to get out of your seat and go wait in a half-hour long line and miss, 3 or 4 innings if you want to get a damn beer. So it's almost
Which
like you
is
got to get to the game super early and, have a couple beers and then get to your seat later. And God forbid you don't have to get to pee because then there's a 30-minute line out of the bathroom. And Major League Baseball decided to put a pitch timer out there, put the clock up, so now the games are way faster. So
Mhm,
if you go get a beer and you go to the bathroom, you could miss an hour of baseball that you paid $100 for. So um,
exactly. One
definitely
thing
an interesting ballpark experience now compared to when we were younger.
one thing I'll also say is we took the tram, like the shuttle from Union Station to the
Hmm.
Dodger game.
Nice,
Absolutely amazing getting there. We were able to have a couple drinks before we
nice.
going. We're feeling good at the game beforehand, chilling. Didn't really have to pay for drinks because we didn't want to do all that. Didn't have to
Yeah.
wait in the lines. But I will never again do that because I'll just go ahead and tell the whole story. So we ended up waiting in line for like 20 minutes to try and get on the shuttle back to Union Station, and we did not move.
Hmm.
We didn't even know where the end of the line was, if we were actually at the end of the line.
Oh
And we
no!
headed there directly after the game.
Wow.
It was the worst thing I've ever seen. I would highly not suggest that. We
Hmm.
ended up walking from Dodger Stadium to Union Station
No way.
at night. Bro, it's sketchiest shit I've ever done in my
Was
life.
that a 2-hour walk? How long was that?
It was like a 45-minute walk. It wasn't
Oh,
that
okay.
bad. But
Damn.
downtown
Especially at
LA
night.
at like 10 o'clock at night, bro, there was one point where we walked through this tunnel, uh, and we were going down like the winding spiral, and I was just like, this is where I'm gonna get shanked. This is where I'm gonna get shanked. Some homeless dude's gonna come out and shank me right now.
The beauty of Los Angeles, gotta say. The
But
inner dialogue that goes through your head while you're walking through the streets of LA at night. What a
oh
what
my
a place to
gosh.
live.
And to top it off,
Thanks,
we
Gavin
had
Newsom.
we had I did not do it, but the
Oh.
person I was with misread the train back to our place and it had already left.
Oh.
So we ended up, luckily, they were kind enough where they paid for the Uber back, but we
Oh, okay.
Ubered back and it was just like miserable because it was like, man, if we knew it was going to be that, I would have paid half to just Uber from Dodger Stadium
Yeah, for sure.
instead of doing that whole 45-minute hour walk.
What a disaster.
So
What an
that
absolute
left
disaster.
a terrible taste in my mouth, and one huge reason why I don't want to go back to the stadium. I'm interested in trying out other stadiums. Right now,
Yeah.
Dodger Stadium just
I would
they
suggest
have to
Angel
figure out
Stadium.
yeah.
It's much cheaper. It's not packed at all. The parking lot is so easy to get in and out of. The parking is half the price. The people are nice there. It's just a much better baseball watcher experience in terms of getting in and out, of more affordable concessions. Um, Don't have to wait in a line to go to the damn bathroom. You know, it's a pretty expansive ballpark. People are nice and spread out and all crammed in there. So I'd suggest an Angels game
Yeah.
for sure.
I've been there one time when I was younger. I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good experience.
Yep.
I'm also one thing I'm really interested in trying is minor league games.
Oh yeah,
You know, we used to be able to go to a minor league stadium where we grew up. Unfortunately, that's no longer the stadium is there, but the team is no longer there. It's
terrible.
just taking up space, but it was a cool experience. There were some
Yeah.
big players that came through, and
Hmm.
it was fun. I learned to drive in that parking lot because there was never anyone there.
That's awesome. That's a great story. I think Carlos Correa was there when he was 19 years old.
Hmm.
So it's pretty cool to see some single A guys. You know, now it's a soccer arena.
Really?
There's a semi-pro soccer team there called AV Alta or something. And they built these huge grandstands on the field and all that kind of crazy stuff. Uh, for a baseball guy, it's blasphemy, in my opinion. But whatever. Whatever. I mean, if people are going to show up and they're going to get some fun out of it and get some use out of the stadium, whatever, go for it.
Right. At least
Um,
it's not just taking up space like it was for so many years.
yeah, 100% for sure. But
But all right,
cool.
Sean. Well, we've gone over what we usually allot for the time, but that's because we have such a good time talking to each other.
Heck
I
yeah,
hope you
man.
guys enjoyed listening to us and have a
Absolutely.
great
It's always
rest of your
fun.
day.
100%. See you guys next time.